Ben, if you hit the red dot, it'll record this time, okay? All right. It's all fun and games until you find a problem. So, we will have to come up with some unique way to repair that. Hey, this is Davin with Hagerty on our Redline Rebuilds. Today we're working on our 65 Austin Cooper Mini engine, and we're gonna get it tore apart, inspected, all the parts scattered on that table, and of course start deciding where things need to be improved, replaced, rebuilt, polished, painted, whatever else it might need. Here's my rockauto.com tip of the day. This cell phone is not just for ordering parts. The other good use is a memory. Take a picture of everything as you tear it down. And if there's something specifically you're trying to remember, point to it right in the picture. Pretty simple. That's pretty cool the way this is done. This is interesting. This is the thermostat, and you can see, if you're familiar with thermostats, it's been completely gutted, meaning this is non-functional. Now, there's a few different reasons why someone would do that. Normally, it's all around trying to get things to run cooler. So sometimes you'll cut the thermostat out so there's no restriction, get more flow through the engine, subsequently, actually higher flow through the radiator, but it also is not transferring heat out of the water quick enough or as efficiently by doing that. So we may actually have an issue ultimately with our radiator being less than optimal. I'll have to do some little more research on this, but yeah, this is not necessarily what I was kind of a surprise to find on a daily driver, if you will. Race cars maybe, but not on a daily driver. A gutted thermostat. Just something to think about when I go to put it back together. There it was. So, at the end of the day, here's how this thing ticks. If your clutch disc is spinning, right, your transmission's spinning, but you can see the crankshaft is stationary. So, that clutch disc, as you engage and disengage it, locks the crankshaft to the clutch, just like normal, just the opposite direction. And that in turn spins, as the crankshaft is spinning, that in turn will spin your gears. So there's a follower gear or a coupler gear here, and then this is your input of your transmission. So maybe call that an idler, I suppose. Cool. Well, we knew it had to get there somewhere, somehow. So, all right, so with that, now I can continue on. I'm not sure, well, I do know. So, right there, transmission's deactivated. That wasn't what I was after. look all that bad. The tops of the pistons don't look bad for the amount of oil and crap it's burning. It's all fun and games until you find a problem. So here we are, heads off, wiped down the surface, actually rotated the block over to continue taking the water pump in the front of the engine apart. Shadow caught my eye looking down at it that I have a gash here and back here on two, basically going into two cylinder bores, 1 and 2. Now, initially I'm trying to figure out what would cause that, right? What would cause it? All right, somebody was messing around, had die grinder, cut off wheel, I don't know. There doesn't seem to be any reason to ever have that, even though I've never had one of these apart. I can't wrap my head around why there would ever be any relief porting coming out of the combustion chambers. But it's also very smooth, and it looks more like erosion, which I have seen between two cylinders. When a head gasket goes out, it will tend to eat because it's pushing fluid back and forth, or combustion, if you will, back and forth between two cylinders. It will erode that and have a path very similar to this. I've just never seen them go that long and actually exit the face of the head. So I think this is what happened is, I think this blew a head gasket. It was running like crap. We got it running decent, right, when we got it. But I have a sneaky suspicion that someone pulled the head off, said, oh, I didn't really see that. Let's throw the gasket back on, button everything back up, and maybe push it down the road. But I could be completely wrong and just too cynical on that. Needless to say, we can't do that, and we're going to fix this somehow. Now, my first question is, how deep is it? Well, it's a little difficult to measure right here because even my gauge here that I have for measuring depth is just too big for that hole. But one of the things I can understand is with the piston at top dead center, or as high up as it comes in the stroke, I can measure my deck height, right, and get a feel for how much surface I have to work with. And this is just something more than anything that I'm going to supply to the machine shop, because I'm going to take a block that doesn't have any pistons in it, right? So I'm at about 29 thousandths in the hole. So looking at that, again, I'm going to have to do a little bit of a visual comparison, but let's throw a straight edge across there. Yeah, no. I bet you we're closer to 50. And it's also warped because it ain't straight. So there's a dish. So at least looking across the flat, and again, my surface isn't quite cleaned up yet, so I'll be off a little bit. But so here, I think maybe you can see it now from this side. Let's see it from this side. See how you can see light underneath there? So it's not only warped at the cylinder, the deck face, which is, I'll say normal. We always deck them off to get them nice and flat from heat cycles. But our hole in there is not going to clean up that easily. So we will have to come up with some unique way to repair that, which is probably going to involve some sort of, I guess, welding. But Joey and Michael, you'll have a answer for us on that one, and hopefully it's not, oh, shizzle sticks, throw it in a trash can. Don't let me forget to measure the thrust. In this one I want to know what it is because it doesn't feel good. This whopper out of here. Come on. All right, so we are in our last push to get this completely disassembled in the block over to the machine shop. And just kind of feeling things, it sure feels like this crankshaft has a lot of play. But what we'll do is put a gauge on it and actually have a number. I don't know what the spec is, but for right now I'm just gonna write down what I have and we'll worry about it later. Just in case the crankshaft is, boom. It's not as bad as it looks. We're at 9 thousandths. It sure looked like a 1/4 inch when we were moving it before. Especially when it kicked when we rotated the block. All right, so that's not too bad. 9 thousandths, I'll write that down and have it. That way, when I compare that to the spec, if it's too big, we can address it. All right, now let's get the pistons out, crankshaft out. Well, with all of our parts out on the table and the block empty, well, we got a few problems to resolve. So like we've already mentioned, the blown head gasket is at least what I'm calling it for right now, here and here. Eroded away the top surface is definitely not a good thing. Checking the bores, 4, 3, 2, and 1 all have fairly large ridges. So we're gonna have to punch it out. I'll say to get rid of the ridge for sure. And I noticed when I was dropping the pistons out, really only one of them had a fair amount of ring tension, meaning basically I touched the piston and it started to fall out of the hole. So that tells me there's no tension holding things as far as sealing, right? Which we already know it was burning a lot of oil. I believe that's what this witness mark is around the wrist pin, as far as, the amount of blow by past everything that way. And you can see on both the rod bearings and the main bearings that fairly wore as far as the bearings are concerned. But it seems like they have done their job and have protected the crank, because the crank does not have any big ridges in it from wear. So that's a good sign. I think crankshaft might be able to get away with just a polish, but again, we need to see where it's wore, because it could certainly wear smooth and just be smaller. So we'll have to I'll take and inspect the crankshaft with the mics that I have, compare that to spec, and then go through, of course, the rods and that with machine shop and decide where we're at. But first, I got a lot of cleaning to do. So I'm gonna run everything through the Gladiator parts washer. So, I guess, back at her. Okay, so after I vapor honed my cylinder bore and the valves, cleaned them up obviously, get all the carbon nasty off of it, put them in, sealed them up with grease, have my spark plug in there, took actually some antifreeze, mainly for a visual standpoint, put that into the combustion chamber, sealed off with this piece of plexiglass, and now I'm able to measure my combustion chamber volume, and that is at 22 cc based on the amount of fluid that went into that chamber. What this does for me now, I know there's some slight problems with availability of pistons. It gives me some idea, at least what I have for chamber size, then I can dictate what combustion chamber, or I should say what compression ratio I have if I have an issue getting pistons exactly to what we already had. So, and it's always a good idea to know what it is anyway. So at this point, I'm gonna take the head over to Thurlby's. They're gonna go through it and do all that work and do the things that they do best. Guides are gonna be a must. Seats are gonna be, obviously have to be ground, but we'll see where they are as far as needing to be replaced. I don't have any numbers relative to depth, if you will. And we'll see if we can do a simple cleanup on the valves and regrind this surface and reuse these, because if we can, that would be handy. Obviously, we'll get new seals and fresh springs. Next time you're gonna see this, we'll be over at the machine shop, getting everything cleaned up, machined, and ready to be reassembled. So until then, have fun, get out in the shop, get your work done, and go enjoy the day. See ya.